what can we expect in January if the volume just dips down? Maybe this isn't the peak season they were expecting.
The facts, dates, and events presented in this video are from the member's best recollection and may not be fully accurate. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Always consult with your local union about your rights and duties at your workplace. The opinions shared on this video are our own and do not necessarily represent my employer's positions, strategies, or opinions. All views shared are protected under the National Labor Relations Act.
What is going on, everybody? So today I have Greg Kerwood out of Local 25 in Boston and Nor, business agent out of Local 623 in Philadelphia. And honestly, I'm holding this pumpkin here. It took me forever to get it up here and get it working. And this will probably be the only time you get to see it, because I don't know if I really want to go through that trouble again. But I'm going to put this down now because we're going to be talking about peak season. Since we're in October, we're running into the months of peak season. And, this video, we're going to be covering basically the dates that go along with peak season, because there's a lot of different dates you have to know, 9-5, 8-hour requests and all that. Some of it's supplemental, some of it's national. Then we're going to get into, what you need to be prepared for. It's your first peak season ever working here. What do you need to be prepared for when going into peak season? And then the last thing we want to touch on is terminations. What are the most common terminations during peak season and what to expect? So let's kick into the dates first. Greg, with the dates during peak season, there's so many different dates that you have to learn. There's 9-5, like when can you file 9-5? When can you not file 8-hour requests? When can you not file 9-5? When can you not file, or when did the helpers get on the car with you? When does peak season start? The list goes on and on. Now with this list, what can you explain? What do members need to know about this?
Well, first, just to cover the dates that are in the national and apply to everybody. I think we already went by, if you don't want a SSD taking your work during peak, you needed to get off the 9-5 list. That was back in September, so we've sailed through that. The next important date would be when SSDs can start. There's two separate dates. If they are inside employees working as SSDs, they can start driving November 1st, and they can continue driving to the end of peak. The end of peak would be defined in your supplement. If they're off the street SSDs, they cannot begin working until November 15th. That's 2 weeks later. And they can only work until December 26th. So it's a very short window for those folks. And that's something I would expect people to have to keep an eye on, knowing the company as I do. 8-hour requests, also national language. There's no 8-hour requests during the months of November and December. I like to point out to people that means first week of January, second week of January, when it's still crazy, you have every right to put an 8-hour request. 9-5 protection is slightly different. There's no 9-5 between November 15th and January 15th. And then there's also issues about what counts towards seniority, what doesn't, when your helpers can start, how long they can work for, things like that are going to be in your supplement, when the last week of vacations is. All of those things, you're going to have to check your supplement to see what the date is in your area.
And with that being said, let's get into, what is it like to be a new hire or first peak ever working here? Norm, what tips and tricks can you tell these guys that have never done a peak season before?
Right, the first thing is you got to remember it's just like any other day. You're going to have more packages than usual, but it's just like any other day. Don't fall for the pressure. Don't do something dumb and say something, oh, I only did this. I scanned it away from the area to help the company. I did it to help UPS. I took a shortcut to help UPS. Don't do it. You want to cover your ass like you do every day. But the things you can look out for, the first 2 weeks of peak, traditionally, I'd say for the past few years have been light. You're wondering like, okay, we have less work than we've had the previous years. And all of a sudden it just hits you and you feel like it's never going to end. But we're just moving cardboard, moving a package from here to there. That's all we're doing. Pick it up, put it down. You have 14 hours before you run into your DOT violation. You do what you can. You don't have to do it all. Now, there's a caveat. I'm not telling you to not work. I'm just telling you to work safely and protect yourself. Don't stress yourself saying I have 500 stops to get done. We know that's untenable. You do what you can and just communicate with management.
Now we're getting into terminations during peak season. And I've been here for a long time, and I've seen peak seasons where I swear to God, someone could drive a truck through a building and they wouldn't fire them. And then I see other peak seasons where people just scan stuff out of area and then they're out on the streets. I mean, why is that? And what terminations have you seen during peak season?
Well, like everything else, the company does whatever suits their purpose. So if they need every single body on the street working, they're not going to be terminating people during peak. If it turns out that they've overstaffed, they are more than happy to put people on the street to get their staffing down to where they want it. As far as what they fire people for, it's a lot of the stuff that Norm just talked about indirectly. People taking shortcuts, falsifying records, sheeting stuff, when they're not at the location, sheeting air complete before 10:30 when you haven't got there yet, driving accidents, things that people, avoidable accidents because you're driving too fast, you're trying to get things done. Anything that is based on stress and panic that, as Norm just talked about, people tend to get the notion in their heads that somehow you're responsible for whatever mess they give you, and that's not completely true. Your responsibility is to work safely to the best of your ability, whether you've got one stop or you've got 500. And if you can't do that and complete what you've been given for the day, that's not on you. That's on the company for over dispatching you. And as Norm said, you want to put that burden on the company, communicate with them, let them know I'm not going to finish, or I'm not going to get my businesses done by 5, or I'm not going to make the pickups back to the building or make the air trailer or whatever it is, and make them make the decisions. Don't be out there alone going, oh, I got to get this done. I'm just going to skip lunch today, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to take this shortcut, or I'm going to sheet all these not in one in the back of the truck so I can say that I did them, or those type of things. That's what gets people fired any time of the year, but even during peak.
Norm, in your years of being a business agent, being a truck driver even for UPS, I mean, what are the things that you see people get thrown on the street for during peak season?
Dishonesty. The company calls everything dishonesty, as Greg just said. You get out of the building at 9:45. You have 10:30 air commits. You're not going to make it, but they take it upon themselves to scan it as not ready, not in. It's something other than just having a late air, because once again, we take it on ourselves to think that we have to save UPS from themselves. Lunches, ironically, because it all depends on the volume level. If the volume is through the roof, UPS is going to turn a blind eye to everything. But if the volume is down and you don't take your hour lunch, they're going to gig you for everything. I've seen people get fired for lunches during peak season. I've seen people get fired for the dumbest things. Having a hooded sweatshirt on in the PCM. It's nonsensical things. Okay, we should be in uniform, but instead of just saying, hey, take that off, they want to issue them a discipline just to, thin the herd a little bit. So it's the nonsensical things. It's the nitpicking, but these are the things that the company comes for.
So we pretty much just established that, like, listen, if the peak season's heavy, they turn a blind eye to a lot of things, even though no matter what, we should be doing the job to the methods and the way we're directed. But if the peak season's light, then they try to nitpick and find these little things and everything else. And I mean, I'm going to throw this to you, Norm. What can we expect in January if the volume just dips down? Maybe this isn't the peak season they were expecting.
Ooh, a lot of layoffs, a lot. You're going to see theater drivers and package drivers back in the building. Part-timers are going to get displaced. And you're going to see everything ramping up. I know there's a new uniform policy that's beginning on October 21st. So the company is going to monitor everything from your socks to your shirt to the creases in your pants to your haircut, the length of your beard. They're going to look for everything possible to try to get people off the clock and on the street.
So, Norm, with this new uniform change coming in, can you hit some of the highlights of what to expect out of it?
Yes, one thing is, for the longest I can remember, you can only wear a white shirt or brown shirt under your uniform that's visible. So you can now wear a black t-shirt under there. Beard policy is changing. Beards can be no longer than 3 inches. And the boot policy is changing also. It doesn't have to be polishable leather as of October 21st. It can be all black or all brown, but it has to be one tone. those are some of the highlights that I remember from it.
Before we close this out, Greg, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that after peak, from a fiscal perspective, obviously most of UPS's profits roll in during peak season. They love to make that first quarter of the year look good, which means that they turn into a pumpkin at midnight, so to speak, once you hit January 1st, and everything is getting rid of bodies, getting people off the street, cutting back, as Norm referenced, laying people off, laying off feeder drivers, whatever they can cut in that first quarter, they're going to cut come hell or high water, because they want to make those first quarter profits as high as possible because it sets them up for the rest of the year. So people should expect that. Expect them to be looking for anything they can get people out on the street for, and make sure you're covering your backside.
Yeah, one of the concerns I have is that generally there are a lot of people out there that I don't know, they just don't care or they never look into this stuff, whatever. Every route I've ever been on, there's always a CIR that says front door, man, woman, dock, whatever. I mean, do you think it's that hard for the company just to look at that, pull that up and say, oh, hey, we got like 50 people we can get rid of right now, So
And that's
just,
what's going to happen.
yeah, CYA, man, I'm serious. Like, and I'm sorry to say this, but like this company, it's going on the fast track of just whatever is the fastest results that they need to get to. They don't look like, 10 years down the road, they think about tomorrow. And I don't know. Anyways, we'll leave this for a different episode. I'm sure we can dig into that. But all right. So if you have not done so already, follow the UPS Teamsters 2023 Contract Enforcement Group. Greg Kerwood runs that, and 623 Lives Matter on Facebook, Instagram, all social medias. Shout outs. Greg, you have any shout outs tonight? And that means a no. or do you?
No, of course I do.
Oh, of course he does. All right, shout outs.
I have to shout out the longshoremen who are currently on strike and shutting this country probably down if they don't get a contract. Hats off to them for doing what's right. The shipping companies, for people who don't know, are all foreign owned. There's not a single American company involved in these negotiations. They've made billions and billions and billions over the last few years. And it is high time that these workers got what they deserve. So if you see a picket line, never cross it, and make sure you're out there blowing your horn, stop by, bring some coffee, whatever it is, and support these workers that are out there fighting for what's right.
Absolutely. Norm, shout outs. Do you have any shout outs tonight?
Yep, I want to shout out to ILA as well, and to one of our new groups, Philly Trans. We're still working on contract negotiations. We just need everybody to hang in there. We are going to get it done.
All right. And that's all I got, everybody. Love you, and I'll see you next time.